a journey getting here. That's why we're late. I woke up late. I went to bed at 4 actually. I was finishing a recording and clearing up all my emails and things. And then I looked at my watch, my phone. It was already 4 o'clock.
Wow,
So
you
I
did sleep.
so I woke up at 6:30, my usual time. But then I fell right back asleep. And I woke up at 8:30. That's when I called Mum to say sorry. Today I'm going to be late. So, but anyway, the journey here was a bit of a mess as well because the tube train wasn't running. But anyway, we got here and it's great. It's a rainy day, and I was walking along and looking at the rain. I was thinking this is so lovely because the ground can get a bit wetter, and our garden can actually grow things now. So that's really good. But we're here to read my book, Thriving at Nature's Pace with Mum. It's a book about how we can thrive through the climate crisis. Uh, and it talks about all the things about, what causes it, where we are. And today we're going to start a new chapter. It's called Embracing the Complexity. And this, I think, is one of the most important ones because we're used to thinking we have to have a solution and that it has to be easy, we have to understand how it works and so on. But the reality is life's complicated. It's not going to get easier. So if we can't embrace the complexity, we're never going to get there. So just remember, life's complicated and that's okay because once you accept that, you can actually get far. So, embracing the complexity, chapter 3. The economist Elinor Ostrom, Elinor, my same name as my mum, spelled differently, received the Nobel Prize for her work 15 years after the establishment of the UNFCCC. If it were given 15 years earlier, might things be different? This is worth asking because her work focuses on how people come together to resolve complex dilemmas. Her research refutes the long accepted but misguided claim of the tragedy of the commons. This is the notion that people act selfishly to exhaust common resources. She finds instead that the opposite is true. Time and again, people come together to concoct novel ways to protect common resources. They discover ways to convince each other to consent to a governance that they themselves shape. In her Nobel lecture, she lamented how policymakers fail to recognize this. They rely on oversimplified model of how people's motivations work. These result in policies that focus on manipulating individuals to achieve what experts say should be done. The same model is then used everywhere. Instead, her prize-winning work shows that people are more than competent to determine the best outcomes themselves. If needed, they will create markets and bring in governments. People are the experts. They know what they need. Embracing complexity lies at the center of her work. The world is complex. Motivations are complex. Any realistic approach to climate change has to embrace its social as well as its physical, political, economic, and spiritual complexity. It might have been possible at one point to resolve climate change by simply replacing oil and gas and coal, but that time is now long gone. A person can both want to use oil and gas and coal and staunchly defend another's right to continue using them and still want to see an end to their reign. There does not need to be any contradiction here. It is in fact the position of many people on the planet. Contradictory desires like this coexist because people face complex realities. They do not want to be judged for the complexity of their motivations and choices. Governance therefore has to embrace contradictions. That is why the UNFCCC policies fail. The climate veteran Makoto Okubo described how government's climate policies are often like the north wind in Aesop's fable, the north wind and the sun. The north wind attempts to get a traveler to take his coat off. It fails. The harder it blows, the tighter the traveler hangs on. The sun, in contrast, lets the traveler choose. And at some point, the traveler happily discards the coat. When people discard the coat, they're making more than a choice about the sun. They're balancing the cost of carrying the coat, maybe even discarding it and keeping it on. Each person faces a cascade of consequences and motivations. That's why they are better equipped to choose. They can understand better ways to resolve the complexity of issues for themselves. Of course, there need to be incentives. The sun provides an incentive by making it hot. The traveler soon wishes to be cooler. However, the sun also won because its incentives reward tangible actions with tangible benefits. Saving the planet is high sounding, but is only beneficial along one high sounding dimension. It dismisses the complexity of people's immediate motivations. Saving the planet is not much of a tangible benefit when people cannot make ends meet. Social capital holds this complexity together. It is embodied in the knowledge that should a person fall, someone will be there to help her up. That is what people worry about. What if, for whatever reason, someone stopped using oil and gas and coal and is then left to fend for herself alone? Equally, what if she is not ready to let go of oil and gas and coal and is then singled out and punished? These questions converge into one important question. Who will stand with her to face the worst of climate change? The UNFCCC does not answer this question for people. Instead, it punishes them for worrying. It gives them constant reminders that they will be left alone. It does so by emphasizing how they will be victims if the trillions of dollars does not come. It creates artificial divides between people by constantly naming everything in terms of north and south. It drives economics to be just about money. It is constantly emphasizing how this country should get money and that country should pay. This kind of bargaining descends into guilt shaming. Every country negotiates for itself. The small Pacific islands, the indigenous communities, and even the richer countries all feel they are facing climate change on their own. Their citizens, in turn, see the failures of their governments on the international stage and fear that they will now definitely be forced to face climate change alone. Such threats and coercion destroys social capital. Social capital does not need agreement, it needs engagement. It comes from connecting and interacting. It comes from realizing that the person someone disagrees with on one day may be the person one needs to rescue them the next. In the UNFCCC discussions, there is never such an interaction. The small islands are cast into the role of those already devastated. The Chinese are cast in the roles of being the great polluters. The Americans are cast into the role of being the great deniers. In this play, the petrostates are the great evil, and among all this, the Europeans are the moral pretenders. The reality is that each role is embroiled in complexity. Hi, we've got some people joining us just to say hi. Thank you for joining. So this is my mum, Eleanor, and me, and I'm reading my book with her because she said, look, you spend all this time writing the book. You know I can't read because my eyes have gone bad. So why don't you read it to me? So that's what we're doing today. And we're on the third chapter and it's been in the playlist. And it's been really good actually because it means that I get to spend more time with mum and she gets to ask me questions. What do you think, mum? Yeah. So China is now the world's leading solar panel and electric vehicle manufacturer. They are able to produce them cheaply so that people around the world can afford to buy them. However, rich countries do not celebrate this as an achievement. They see it as a bone of contention. In fact, they accuse China of dumping. That is, China is selling the products below the price they can be produced. Rich governments then put up taxes and tariffs as a power play to keep their own citizens in danger. The fact is someone has to bear the cost of switching to new technologies. If China is willing to bear the cost for everyone, then it's to everyone's benefit. Individual countries can work out how to develop their own industries in their own time. Otherwise, the delay will allow climate change to topple the economy. If that happens, there will be no industries. This is how politics gets in the way of tackling climate change. Sadly, governments cannot resolve these complexities, they only make them worse. Equally, the small islanders who are already seeing their populated areas flooded by rising seas are always framed as helpless. Yet they are developing technologies for elevated buildings, warning systems, and safeguarding water supplies. These are essential technologies and knowledge for people in other places. The complexity of climate change means the ones most at risk today are the ones most prepared. And that makes the small islanders the most qualified to teach. Hi, everybody. So we've got a little bit more along. And just to say hi to everybody who's joining. And again with my mum, Eleanor. We do this most mornings between about 8:30 and 9 in the UK time. But today was a bit later because I was up very late last night. And I got up late. So carry on, we got one more page along in this. This means that disagreements over funding and financing are irrelevant. There is no money, so it's not the money that matters. However, the interactions are essential to build social capital. It recognizes the people who are hopeless victims today are the ones who will come to the rescue tomorrow. Recognizing this does not come for free. It comes from every member contributing. In the case of supporting each other through climate change, it's everyone contributing to be part of nature's family. This is where membership of the global citizenry is meaningful. It goes beyond national politics and it goes beyond money. It is about being there for each other to thrive, even with climate change. This is thriving at nature's pace. It is thriving through the sense of belonging. Good economics springs from the connections that make up this belonging. The connections give economics purpose, and this is the purpose that is embedded in the social capital. Social capital allows economics to emerge even when there is no money. In fact, it emerges better because there is no money. That is how the homeless, the homeowner, the very poor and the very rich can all be together in nature's family. And even when they hold opposing political, social, economic and spiritual views. Social capital, distinct from financial capital, is not about the quantity of contribution that a person makes. It is about being present. This is alien to the modern financial industry and financial mentality. There, everything is proportional to the size of the contribution. More money should buy more control. Social capital refutes this. A person who is tripped over does not need to care if it is a wealthy person or a poor person who comes helps him. It only matters that someone helps him. Social capital is how complexity of people's motivation can be accommodated. It's about dignity. It does not matter how people participate in nature's family. What matters is that their participation is recognized. That is what dignity is. Dignity comes from embracing the complexity that everyone has a place. So that was that chapter, and very important start to it, called Embracing the Complexity. So, Mum, what do you think? Any thoughts? Any thoughts? Life's complicated. And it is. And that's how it is. And we need to actually accept that, rather than thinking we're going to make it easy and simple.
Yeah, it's so difficult.
It is. And you've got some great stories. We'll do that another day, actually. That was a good idea. Okay, so we're going to finish here. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
So I'm going to have to run. You take care, everyone, and have a great day. And Mum too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.